Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for today's webinar. My name is Maura Thompson. I am Principal at Hazelwood Integrated College in Belfast, and I was a 2017 Teaching Award Gold winner for Head Teacher of the Year. I'm currently a judge, and I have the pleasure of chairing this evening's event. The purpose of the webinar is to share how to get the best experience from the Teaching Awards and how it all works. So we'll be discussing the following areas, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity for you to ask some questions later on. We'll be chatting to an expert panel made up of past winners, judges, and the Teaching Award team. So, why should you enter, and what's the impact of winning? How to enter, and what we're looking for in an entry, and the judging processes and the key awards milestones. Then we're going to have a question and answer session, and if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please type them in the Q&A box in your Zoom webinar control panel, and we will answer questions at the end. Rest assured, all questions will be answered at a later date. All presentations will also be emailed to you after the event. Now, with further ado, to the real guests, I get a chance to chat to some of these people, and before we do, we're going to show a short film showcasing the success of the 2021 awards.
Can you imagine if you're a teacher, this is all you want? It's huge, isn't it?
The Oscars.
Yeah.
Mega.
It's really exciting to be awarded, and to be told thank you is really quite special.
I think it's the prestige of this award because it's a national award. It's a massive thing and everybody knows that.
Go to the Teaching Awards website and get nominating, and you never know, we might just be surprising them this time next year.
Nicola, I'm going to start with you if you don't mind. We have some nominators, we have some nominees, and we also have some very successful winners. And the question for you really is, did you worry about selecting one particular member of staff and the impact that that would have on your colleagues?
Although it was only one person that was nominated, it was actually a celebration for the whole school. And by involving the whole school in the nomination process, I felt that everybody was involved and everybody thoroughly enjoyed the process and being part of it. So no, I didn't worry about that.
Jackie, congratulations. You were the winner of Teacher of the Year in a primary school. How did it feel to be entered and the whole experience? Talk us through it and the impact of that on the wider school as well.
It started with Thank a Teacher Day back in, I think, February last year. And it's just fantastic that parents have taken the time to write such lovely messages, not just to me, but to teachers in our school, lots of teachers out there. This gathered momentum, and to then be told I was a finalist was unbelievable. But then I was completely surprised in June when I was awarded the Silver Award in front of all of our children. It was just an amazing day. They loved it. It has felt overwhelming at times, but there's been a massive buzz around school with our parents, children. It's just been a wonderful, warm feeling. Following the Silver Award, I was then invited to the National Gallery in London for the Silver Winners afternoon tea. And again, just a wonderful feeling for us in school, knowing that I was going there. And it was lovely to go and see and listen to other people's stories. Then from there, in November, the One Show came into school, and I hadn't realised that I'd won at the time. The One Show came into school. We had some of the Strictly dancers in school with us, and I was awarded the Gold Award for Teacher of the Year in a primary school. And it's just been amazing. The buzz we've had in school, that feel-good, lovely feeling, just tremendous. And it just brought a smile to my face looking at your video then, reliving it all again.
Jackie, thank you so much. Sam, your school was very successful in 2008 and was awarded the winner of the primary school year. What impact has winning had on the wider community?
I think for us, it was just one of those absolutely incredible experiences. The school had been through such a poor period of, time, years of kind of underperformance, and then achieved a kind of good grading. But actually for our local community, which was in such a deprived area, I mean, the kids genuinely still, talk about it like it's the best thing in the whole entire world. And it brought together this, the school with kind of that sense of aspiration. The awards still, pride of place in the office. And, I think if I can give two real simple examples, I think, of what it meant to the community, not only did it bring everyone together in terms of like, parents still talk about it. I still work for the same trust. I moved away from the school in October, and basically all my kind of leaving cards and everything talked about the school being the best school in the world, and that's linked to the teaching awards. And one little girl even went to another secondary school to visit, and one of the other kids didn't recognise her school uniform. And then mum came in to say that when one of the kids asked about the uniform or where it's from, she went, I don't understand why they don't know. We're the best school in the whole entire world, and everyone should know who we are. So that sense of aspiration for a massively deprived community, the kids still talk about it constantly on a daily basis. So it is something that just is a lasting legacy. And to be honest, I never envisaged the long-term impact it would have, but it's still something that they're immensely proud of. And any students coming back to the school just talk about it as like the best thing ever. So, real positive for the community.
So Sam, having won the award, would you ever think of entering someone else or paying it forward as a result of you winning that?
Yeah, obviously from judging the awards, it's a bit difficult around the primary school of the year one, so I'm always a bit kind of cautious around that. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I recommend it to everybody. Anyone that asks me about the awards, it's from a school point of view, from a kind of education point of view, but even from a personal point of view, like I genuinely, it is the highlight of my life, let alone my career. Like that, winning that award was, will stay with me as the best thing possible. Sometimes I feel like I should just quit now, because it was the ultimate, and it was a peak, kind of get that feeling back again. But yeah, absolutely. And I recommend. I work in lots of schools now across the country as part of our trust, and I'm always nudging them in the direction of putting people forward and teachers forward to the awards. I just think the impact it has for the school community and everybody was just just phenomenal. So yeah, 100%.
Nicola, we haven't chatted to you yet, and you're a silver award winner. So can you tell us a wee bit really around the advice that you would give to someone looking to enter?
Yeah, well, I was lucky enough to have been nominated by my principal, but I think the whole experience is just incredible. I would say if you think about entering yourself, then go for it, because even to be part of this experience is just, it's out of this world. Like, I loved it. My colleagues loved doing it. We were all so excited. My students in school, I'm in a big secondary school, and I was lucky to be part of one when I was not nominated, and then I moved within my trust, so it kind of came with me. And my Thank You Teacher Day was actually at my second school, which I'd only been at for sort of 6 months, but it's incredible watching the children enjoy this experience. So I think part of this is that although you're nominating a teacher, actually what you're doing is you're giving this experience to the children in your school as well, which I didn't have as a child in school, and I don't think many of us that have gone through this ever saw this as a teacher, because part of what I think this does is it raises their aspirations to be teachers too, because teaching all of a sudden is something more than just what's happening in your classroom, and you see teachers getting awards, and that's incredible, isn't it? So I'd say that's something I'd think about if you were thinking about nominating yourself or somebody else as well.
Jackie, have you any advice to anyone that would be looking to enter?
I would say absolutely go for it. I'll just reinforce what other people have said. Yeah, the children are so proud to have been involved in this, and they're proud of us as a school, and the parents are as well. So absolutely.
What about Sam? Can you chat us through, have you any advice that you would give to anybody thinking of entering?
For me, I think, I mean, I was in a very fortunate position. We were nominated, so it wasn't something, I've often joked actually, and I wish I'd paid more attention, because I thought it was a supply agency thing to start off with when it came through. I thought people were winding me up. But once, you know, I kind of realised that the process, and, you know, one thing I'd say is, I think if you're going to enter into it, I mean, and this is probably personality based, but if you're going to do something, I always believe you do it well. And, you know, if you're going to do it half-heartedly, or, you know, you're not really kind of your heart's not in it, that you know, that's a challenge. So from the point, you know, where we entered, it became almost like a school focus. You know, like I said, the school had achieved its good grading, so I needed something to drive people forward and continue on. So it became a big focus of the school and everything that we were working towards. And, you know, it was a really useful tool to continue that journey of school improvement. So I think, you know, if you're going to do it, my advice would be to wholeheartedly enter into it and be passionate about it, and kind of, you know, use the energy that comes from the process to not only, you know, obviously go for that kind of award, but continue to drive school improvement. And I think the biggest thing as well is, for me, it was a huge thank you to staff, and a reflection on the confidence that I had as a leader in their ability to, you know, be entered into such an award. And for our school, which had been, you know, for years of underperformance, you know, staff had never had the school as perceived as a good school. It was just a massive opportunity to thank people, and to, you know, particularly over what people have been through in education in the last couple of years. I just think it's that really good opportunity to embrace it, thank people, and show people you're grateful for the work that they do.
Well, that's lovely. Thank you. Nicola, you were in a very unique position because you were a nominator, and you must have put some very special things on that paper to get selected, because I know it was a very competitive year this year. So for someone, maybe it's their first opportunity undertaking this, they're not a wee bit sure, talk us through your nomination for Jackie. Tell us what you put in it, and, you know, how you find that process.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed the process as a nominator. So, you know, gathering people's testimonials, and I think that would be something I would advise. Always get people's opinions from across the spectrum: parents, children, governors, anybody that's involved with the school, because you hear things that maybe you've forgotten or haven't thought of. So get a whole host of information to pull together. I think read and follow the entry criteria very carefully. It is a competitive process, and there are lots of things that you need to be aware of before you start, but also to capture that person's personality on a page. I think it's about putting across, all teachers are brilliant, all teachers do a great job, but how do you get your nominee to stand out in a very competitive process? And if you can get their personality across on paper, the judges will see that, and that will shine through. Lots of examples of things that they do that are special, make them different, and that, as Sam says, has a big impact on your school community. And if you can capture all that and enjoy the process yourself, what better way to celebrate the teaching profession? I really enjoyed it from a nominator's point of view.
Thank you so much. Judy Lopez, we have you here, and I think you think maybe you're escaping some questions, and I really want to ask you, can you talk us through your experience? It was a few years ago, but then you've also gone on to become a judge. So if you could share some of those nuggets with us, some of those things that would really help people listening in, I'd be very grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'd echo what people have said all the way through. It really does feel like an experience for the school rather than just this individual. So you know, the children are so proud, and I won for the London and South East region in 2010 in what is now the digital category. And the experience for the children we had afterwards, and the opportunities that they had as well, just from that raising the profile of the school, both nationally, but also within their own community, that pride that Sam talked about as well, of people going, yeah, I come from that school, and suddenly their school's on the map. And I think for me, the overwhelming sense for that award was it belonged to the school, and it's still at that school. It's somewhere in that school. I'm no longer at that school, but that award belongs to that school, even though it's got my name on it. And so I think the experience of kind of recognizing, and I think what the Teaching Awards does is lift the profile of teaching. And I've been judging now since 2012, and that's what I go into it with every year. How do we raise up and share these amazing examples in a way that that celebrates these amazing people going above and beyond, but also raises up the profession at whole, brings to the forefront how hard people are working, that yes, every teacher in every school is going through all these things and dealing with particular communities or needs, and everyone's doing that day in, day out, and we get to just pick out and lift up these people who are nominated. But really you'd want everyone to be nominated, other than the workload issue for us. But it would be a fantastic situation if everyone was raising everyone up through the Teaching Awards as well, because it really is a real community feeling of pride, and I think that's the biggest takeaway for me.
I can remember when I went to London to receive my award, I think I was just glad to be there. I don't think it mattered that it was a silver. I don't think it even mattered if it had been placed. It was just to be part of this event, to get your school recognised. And I suppose all the people that had helped you, I think as educators, you're always very appreciative of all these people that helped you get to where you are. So it's a great opportunity for those people in the school, the staff, the community, and everyone to feel part, irrespective of the outcome. And I think sometimes we can become very over-focused on winning the gold, when actually the celebration is the nomination. The celebration is just being part of it. The celebration is somebody saying, you've done a great job and we're very proud of you, and we've put your name forward for something. And if you win it, that's amazing. But if you don't win it, you have a nomination, and it's something to celebrate as well. So that's the way I felt about it, and actually quite humbling when you went over and all these people across all these different categories, and you were thinking to yourself, wow, this is just wonderful to be here and to listen to all those stories and the very powerful impact that they were having.
You're on mute there, Mara.
You're very glad to move to the next stage, to a very important person who has kept us all very right, speaking of humility, and that is Kate from the Teaching Awards, who's the relationship manager, and she knows the process inside out, and she's going to explain how we go about it and the website. So Kate, thank you so much for doing this. I'm really glad to hear your lovely voice.
Thank you, Myra. Good evening, everybody. So I'm here to do I'm here to talk about the practical side of actually entering the awards. So I'm going to go through literally step by step. So all entries are submitted online. So the first thing you have to do is to go to our website, www.teachingawards.com. And as you can see, hopefully on your screens now, there is a tab, a menu along the top that says Enter the 2022 Awards. So when you go on there, you'll see two boxes, teachers and schools and parents. Now I'm talking to you today as entering people, and that can only happen by staffing schools for 14 of our 15 categories. So that's going to be our focus for today. So in step one, you simply click on I'm a teacher and I'm at school, and then we head over to step two. So there are two parts in step two, and the first part is probably the most important part really, and this takes you to the top of the menu where you can see 4 pink buttons at the top. These are useful documents which have been written to help you to maximise your nominee's success. Now, what makes a good entry guide is definitely a crucial one to read that's been written by our judges, some of whom are with us today. Sarah's going to talk to you a bit more about that later on. But it's really about what they're looking for in an entry and how to get the best out of writing your entry. So that's definitely the key one. For those that haven't heard of the Teaching Awards before, Jodie very kindly wrote us a Mythbuster. So again, there's lots of information in there that's useful if we don't cover it in today's webinar. And then there's the FAQs and the process. So that's kind of the timeline of what happens, which I will also cover briefly later on. So then we head over to part 2. And part 2 is at the bottom of that page, the categories page, you can see a list of all our 15 categories. So the list of categories has a short précis, initially 2 or 3 lines about each of the categories. And then once you kind of had a look and something clicks with you, oh, that's the one I definitely want to do, you can click on either the pink category title or the Enter Now button that you can see just there underneath the bottom. And that gives you an expanded bit of information about the category. And then 2 really key points there. You can see the white blocks with the pink arrows. So the who can enter is the eligibility criteria. So that's different for each of our categories. For example, with Outstanding New Teacher, they've got to have been teaching for 3 years. The Head Teacher, they've got to have been ahead in their current school for 3 years, so on and so forth. And as I say, that's specific to each individual category. So that's really key information to read, so you're not wasting time. The next one, again, really important, is the points to cover. And we call it points to cover because it's a guideline, but they are essentially the category criteria. So they're the points that, as well as everything else that you want to tell us about your nominee, and we absolutely want you to speak from the heart. And you don't have to write about these in any particular order, but we do want you to cover them in your entry. And often there's crossover. So you can sort of keep coming back to those points within your entry. So then we move on to step 3. Now, it sounds a little bizarre, but once you're on your category page and you've got the big description and you've looked at your eligibility and your criteria, you do actually still have to select the category. And that is because it's a very practical reason, because each form is linked. It's slightly different and linked to each of the categories. So that's just to ensure that the correct form with the correct questions are being loaded. So once you're at this stage, you've already prepared your entry, you've got your entry notes, and we're kind of ready to go now. So we head on to step 4. So we don't want you to waste any time. You've spent a lot of time preparing your entry, hopefully. We want you to get straight into telling us about your nominee. So we do ask for our entries to be around 1,000 words. Now that might sound quite daunting and quite a lot, but actually, as I'm sure any of the nominators that you spoke to earlier today, I know I've spoken to Nicola Green in the past, and she said actually keeping to 1,000 words was a bit of a challenge. So once you get going, I think it feels a lot less daunting. The next crucial part is obviously the name of the person that you're entering, and that this is each of these screens changes for depending on the category. So if you're an FE team or a school, then these fields are relevant to the category that you're choosing. Then we have an additional information box, which also has a word count of 1,000 words. And in here, it's really for anything that you think doesn't perhaps flow when you're writing your entry. So it might be quotes from parents, students, stakeholders, anything about your nominee that's personal that you want to tell us. Anything about their situation, or the fact that they've been there 30 years and kind of given their life to the school, or really anything else that you think you would like to tell us goes in this box. So then we go on to section 2 of the entry form. And this is, I guess, what we call the boring but important bits. So we want to know some information about your nominee to give our judges a better picture of them. How long have they worked in college? How long have they worked in that role in total? So they might have been a teacher for 20 years, but only worked with you for 7, for example. We want to know what teaching qualification they hold. And really crucial, we want to know their email address. We Don't be afraid to put that in, because we only contact your nominee after they know their final result. And the same with, you'll notice here, we've got about your FE team and about your school team. So that's obviously the main contact for the entry, whose information you put on there. We don't contact them at all until after they know their result, after the 15th of June. But then we get to the point where we need to invite them to events and congratulate them and send them lots of lovely things. So yeah, please do put that in there. Then we go on to section 3 of the entry form, excuse me. And this is information about you. You'll be the person that we contact all the way along to give you updates on what's happening with the process, to send the results to call you if we need any more additional information. So make sure you fill all of that in. There's a box on the right there that you can see that says, how did you hear about us? I am certainly guilty on filling forms like this in and going, oh, I'll just click the first thing. We do ask that you're not as bad as me and you answer it in a bit more of a precise manner than that, because that feeds into whether our marketing of the awards is working, whether we're reaching the right people in the right ways. We want all schools in the UK to be celebrating people. So the more information we get about our effectiveness, the better it is. So please do fill in that precisely as possible. So then we head on to section 4. And this is information about the school and college, just because we need this information for our judges. The one thing I will say here is lots of people on this page try to miss out the head teacher's email address and put their own address in again. Please don't do that, because it just causes issues down the line. We would always recommend that before you work on your entry, before you submit your entry, that you've actually discussed it with your head teacher, because they need to be on board with this. If you're a head teacher entering, then that's fine, but discuss it with your SLT. If you're anybody else in the school, then please make sure that somebody, if not your head, that somebody on your senior leadership team does know about it. They're in agreement, and please do work on it with them. Slightly different, if anybody's here and they are thinking of entering the impact through partnership category, it's the project that you're putting forward that's judged. It's the project that wins, but we need a lead school, so our judges know that they have a place to go when they do their visit. So for impact only, it would be the information for the lead school on there. So we've nearly finished. We're back onto section 5 now, and this is just the confirmation pages. So you have to agree with our terms and conditions, consent for us to contact you. Obviously, we tell you about the results and everything I said earlier, so we do need your email address there as well. A couple of other buttons at the bottom that you'll see at the bottom of every page here, apart from the submit button. So just before you submit, if you want to just go through and check everything, make sure you've got all the information correct, then you hit the previous button as many times as you need to, back to page 1, check everything, and then click next, and then you get to this page and you can submit. I'm going to come on to save and continue in a moment. So the final section 6, is just your confirmation. So everything's done, you've submitted it, we've received that. For your reassurance, you then get a message on your screen saying thank you for your participation. That's an online screen, and you also get a separate email address. A separate email sent to you by us confirming that we've received your entry, our contact details and our social media handles, so that you can follow everything that's going on there. So I'm going to move on to just a few do's and don'ts. Do read the useful documents we provide before you start your entry. It really does help, and it can be the difference between a successful and an unsuccessful entry. Again, take the time to collate evidence prior to starting. So you want to be getting quotes, ask your pupils what they think of this teacher. You don't have to tell them that you're doing your entry. In fact, probably don't tell them that you're doing an entry. Get some nuggets about what they really think of them. Speak to your colleagues, speak to their head of department, speak to their faculty lead, speak to some external stakeholders that they've worked with. So you're building up a really great picture. You're entering somebody, so you already know this person inside out. But other people will have different opinions and different things to bring to the entry about them. So do write that. One thing one bit of feedback that we sometimes get is, oh, it takes ages, you know, it takes a long time. So the one thing I would say, particularly if I'm speaking to any head teachers today, is you don't have to do that yourself. You can delegate the initial writing of the entry to a colleague. You can perhaps split the criteria up. So the three or 4 points to cover per entry, per category, sorry. Split those up, give those to different people to articulate information for, to write, and then come together, maybe 2 or 3 of you, and to create that final entry. So yeah, share the load really. Some don'ts. I don't really like talking about the don'ts because they're a bit negative, but they are to help you. So don't write more than 1,000 words in the initial your entry box. It won't look like it's going to get cut off to you and you think you got away with it. It doesn't. I get no more than 1,000 words when I look at it online, and it can often cut off mid-sentence. So I would advise you to stop at about 990, 995, and anything additional that you want to say, put in the your information box, and then we're guaranteed for it to make sense when it reaches us. Bit of a bizarre one, the next one. Don't duplicate entries for different colleagues. You might think, well, why would I do that? But if people are entering from maths and they have different people in different schools doing very similar jobs, it can be a little bit tempting when you're doing 4 entries to copy and paste chunks, but our judges can spot it a mile off, and it doesn't stand anybody in good stead. We then don't really know what relates to which nominee. So yeah, just avoid that. Please don't do it. You're unlikely to get shortlisted if you do, so you're really scuppering your chances. And a really big one, don't leave your entry to the last minute. We read every single one internally, and our judges read every single one as well. Where time allows, we give feedback if we feel the entry is too short or you're not providing enough detail on a certain aspect of the criteria. Obviously, the later you enter, the busier we are, the less able we are to provide feedback. So take advantage and use us for that feedback by getting in early. The early bird does catch the worm. I just nearly finished. A few other things to know. I mentioned save and continue earlier. We all know that staff in schools have to drop things very quickly. If there's a safeguarding issue or a child's fallen, or you've got a ranty parent in reception who's demanding to see you. You've got to 700 words and you don't want to lose it. So if you click save and continue, that will give you a link that will appear on your screen. We advise you copy and pasting that and just sticking it on a Word document or in an email for later reference. If you type your email address in, that will automatically get emailed to you, but unfortunately there's been a handful of situations where that's not fail safe, so we do advise you copying the link. When you receive your email confirmation that I showed you earlier, your head teacher also gets a notification saying that the entry has been submitted. If you're the head, then obviously that doesn't happen. But that's why we say it's really important. We don't want this to be the first notification. They have no idea what this is, who we are, what you're doing, and then all of a sudden they get an email saying so-and-so has been entered into the awards. So yeah, it's really important that you speak to your SLT about it. We don't advertise this widely, so you're at an advantage if you're watching this webinar now, but if you want to see example entry forms of previous winners, then they are available on request. We don't put them up on our website publicly because we want to see your unique entry. We don't want everybody to be following the same formula, but if you're really stuck and you're really struggling to make a start, then do come to us and we can do that, which takes me nicely on to, we're always here to help. We'll always answer your questions. No question is too big, too small, too silly. We might have been asked it 1,000 times before, but it's the first time you're asking it. So, do come to us. Don't hesitate to ask us. We're always here to help. And that takes me to the end of this section. So back to you, Myra.
Kate, thank you so much. That was very insightful and very comprehensive, and some learning for me there as well. We're going to move on to what we're really looking for in an entry, and I'd like to ask Sarah really to tell us what she thinks makes a good entry. What are the do's and don'ts, Sarah?
The do's and don'ts. Well, good evening. Kate's gone through some of those, but I think as a judge, we have a lot of application, we have a lot of nominations to read, and we want something that comes off the page, but we don't want it to come off the page because it's sort of something spectacular. It's got to be things that are genuinely rooted in the school and in the school community. And I just sort of think of an example. You know, it's great to be told that somebody is a fantastic skydiver or whatever, you know, wonderful. That looks like the real go action man or woman. But there's a difference between that and the person who learns how to jump out of a plane in order to record for their physics lesson all the forces, the acceleration, the drag, and then goes back and uses it with their year 9s. So those sort of anecdotes are really important to us. But the bottom line is that we want to know about the genuine person, the person grounded in the values of the school and their contribution that they make to the real whole school community and the wider school community. So those things are really important to us. The worst position to be in as a judge is to look at a nomination and say, we think this is a great person or team. Is it because the nomination isn't quite there that we're having to debate whether we would then shortlist that person? So I would say that advice about getting all the information together first is really important. Think about the person. What you want to come off the page is the person, the teacher, the person. And we want to really feel that we get to know that person in that way. Once you've written that, your words, I would say, take those words and run them past some colleagues and say, is this a really good description of that person or that team? Get it checked out and be prepared to make some tweaks around there. And I think the last thing I would say on that, because those help sheets are really good and well worth going to, don't get your data manager to write this nomination. Data is great, but we can look for data about your school. We can look on Ofsted websites and so on. And perhaps I ought to say at that point, you know, you don't have to be an outstanding school to win a teaching award. We've seen some of our strongest nominations come from schools that are in really challenging circumstances. But, you know, we can put together some of that information if we just want some more context. Quote to us what people really feel and really say about people. Provide us with evidence and provide us with that evidence of impact, and you will put together a really strong nomination.
Thank you very much. Haven't got much time, so Jodie, Sam and Nicola, I'm going to ask you for one top tip each. All right, so Jodie?
I think my top tip for writing the nomination is tell us about the impact, not simply what they do. So digital being by category. Yes, you might tell me what apps they use or what software they use. What's the impact of it? What impact is that having for the children's learning, for the community, for the families, or whatever that impact is? Tell us about the impact that's happening from those actions.
Lovely, thank you, Sam.
I think it's probably just be really accurate in what you write down. I think, you know, it is, the teaching awards is unique in the sense that people judging it tend to be teachers and, you know, have, you know, head teachers and come into school, and, you know, there's nothing worse than when you see something really positive on paper and then you walk in and it's not a fair reflection of, you know, what you've read on the paper. So I think it's being accurate and being true to your school, and, you know, not writing something that just you think will tick a box and get people in. It's actually really understanding the DNA of your school and what it's about, putting that in the nomination so we can see it, and then obviously then from the judging process we'll feel that when we go through that process. So yeah.
Nicola Weston.
I wasn't sure which Nicola then. I would say similar to Sam, it's all about being genuine here. I think that's the main thing. Everything is revealed when they speak to children, and they speak to parents, and they speak to everybody involved around you. So being genuine on the application is the biggest thing I'd say.
Thank you so much. We're going to swiftly move on to the judging process and the key award milestones. And I'd like to reintroduce Sarah Dignas to take us through that, please.
Thank you. The judging process, I would say, first of all, that it is a real privilege to be a judge of the Teaching Awards. It's also quite daunting because you see such wonderful practice when you go into schools. And it's, yeah, it really forms a great celebration. So what happens from the judging point of view is that we are sent the entries, and there's an awful lot of reading to do to start with, which is why the bit we've just talked about getting those entries to really come to life is really important. But as judges, we will shortlist, and we will shortlist those who we feel that we want to visit. And then we will start to arrange those visits to schools. Now, until 2 years ago, those were visits in person, and we would travel all over the country, spending 3 hours in a school, and it very much is a 3 hours. Didn't quite turn into a pumpkin at the end of it, but we need to be fair to all schools. So it's really important that schools think carefully about what goes into that visit, and we can help and support with that. Now, for the last 2 years, we've done those visits as virtual visits, and they have been 2 hours and they've been online. And I think as judges, when we started that process, we thought, oh, this is not going to be at all the same. It isn't the same, but it is amazing how schools have risen to the challenge and have really thought carefully about how they can present information to us and how we can meet a real range of people. And that's what we want when we go into schools. So the first thing that a school will get is a phone call out of the blue. And somebody mentioned they thought they'd been approached by a supply agency. We do sometimes get that as judges, and we have to say, no, we are genuinely from the Teaching Awards, and we're here to say congratulations and start a process of celebration. And certainly in my own case, I always word it like that. It's about starting a process of celebration. This is a huge achievement for any school to get somebody on this shortlist and then have a visit to the school. And I think from that point on, I don't think I've ever met a school who have at that point felt, well, if we go through this process and we don't win, it's not been worth it. Everybody who's been involved just sees this as a huge celebration of what they do in school. And so there is a huge degree of excitement. We will, as judges, help with answering questions and planning and making suggestions about what those elements of the visit might look like. It's really good for us to see a range of people, particularly a range of people who have contributed to the nomination. We clearly want to see the person or the team who has been nominated, and we will talk to them and often explore with them their journey to the position they're in at the moment in teaching and what makes them tick. It's really important that we get to know that person. So schools should really try to find that range of people for us to talk to. But then there's a balance, because if you have a room of students and you've only got them for 15 minutes and there's 12 of them there, it's really difficult to give them all some time. But we try and do it in different ways, so that sometimes we will just say to students, just give us one word that describes this teacher or what this teacher has meant to you. And I have to say, students are absolutely fantastic. They do your schools proud because they just talk with such warmth about the nominees. And the other thing I think I would say is, and particularly this year, I've never had so many tears on a visit. And the reason for that, I think is because when we give colleagues a chance to talk about somebody very special, they talk with such passion and such feeling. And I think a lot of them realise it's the first time they've actually articulated what someone means to them. Perhaps it's a colleague who's had a huge impact on their career. Perhaps it's a new teacher who's been helped into the profession. So I always say to people, when you have that visit in school, try and capture some of the things that are said to us as judges and make sure that you say them to the nominee, because often we don't say those things directly to people, but there is such a lot of warmth and support for the nominee around that we really, I think we all enjoy those processes. And so often after the visit, we've had feedback that just says, that was such a lovely, lovely day. And that's what we want to bring to schools. My final thing to say is that the worst bit of being a judge is that when you've done those visits, you then are asked to pick someone who is the Gold Award winner. And that is incredibly, incredibly difficult. And we often spend a lot of time discussing that. And I would say to anybody that's entering, whether you nominate somebody and it doesn't go any further, it will mean something to them that they have been thought about. If you nominate and you are shortlisted and you get a visit, that is amazing. Really celebrate that. If you get the icing on the cake of getting the gold award, fantastic. But, you know, there are only a limited number of gold awards, and the standard that we see for people that end up with the silver awards is truly amazing. And the impact that those people have on their schools and other people is something that is just so great to celebrate. I think that's probably all I will say on the actual judging process. I think, Katie, you're going to pick up more on these next timelines and stages.
I am, yeah. So I'm just going to, I've just got a couple of slides left here, and this is just briefly, as Sarah said, it's you know, it doesn't matter where you end up. It's just all about celebrating staff in schools, really. So we have 3 certificate statuses. We have nominee certificate, certificate of excellence, and highly commended, and they're the non-shortlisted statuses. And then we have 3 shortlist statuses of bronze winner, silver winner, and then, as Sarah said, our ultimate gold winner, of which we only have 15. So then I'm just going to talk briefly about now the key points in the awards year. So we have Thank a Teacher Day on the 15th of June. So the big thing about the Teaching Awards is that we see ourselves as a positive PR vehicle for the education sector. And we want to talk about and we want to celebrate all the great things that are happening in schools. You know, the schools get lots of negative press, and we want to combat all of that. And you might think, well, Thank a Teacher Day, what's that got to do with the awards? Well, it's kind of a two-pronged attack is Thank a Teacher Day. So Thank a Teacher Day is essentially about, we ask all schools across the UK to celebrate all their staff, from the school office staff, the head teacher, the chief executive of your trust. You know, we want everybody celebrated on that day. We want there to be Thank a Teacher parties going on schools. And last year we had some brilliant images and videos on Twitter of, you know, balloon nets coming down and Thank a Teacher cupcakes. It really was fantastic. In terms of our awards participants, it's the day that we announce all our results of our certificate recipients on our website and in schools, and our silver winners and our bronze winners. And we have certificate presentations and in-school celebrations where silver winners are awarded their trophies. We have sponsors going into schools. It's a really lovely day. So the next event is our silver winners afternoon tea, which is held in late June or early July. If you are fortunate enough to be a silver winner, then we invite you down to meet other silver winners. Jackie Birch mentioned earlier she'd been to the National Gallery, so it was a nice prestigious venue in London. And again, you get to meet other winners in other categories, the Teaching Awards team, judges, sponsors. And actually, it's really nice to see your judges again, because when you first see them, you're probably feeling quite nervous. But when you see them this time, you can, yeah, you're nice and relaxed. You've already won, so it's all good at that point. And then that culminates we then kind of jump forward a few months to November, where we have our One Show and the UK ceremony. So the One Show hosts a week-long celebration, broadcasting again as the PR vehicle, broadcasting some of the great things happening in education to the wider public. It's not just about, you know, our little internal Teaching Awards family at this point. So they announce half of our gold winners on the show. They do one gold winner a night. And then we then announce the rest of them at our UK ceremony in November, which is a really lovely event of about 600-700 people. A celebratory awards dinner for all our silvers and all our golds, and it's definitely about celebrating the silvers at that point, not just our 15 gold winners. Esteemed guests from the education world, and we would love to see plenty of you there later on this year. So I guess all that's left to say from me is good luck to everybody if you are going to enter. We hope that you do. Back to you, Moira.
Kate, thank you very much. We have some lovely questions here, and I'm going to be very brave and put some of our judges on the spot. So the first question, I'm going to give this to Jodie. I'm a student in year 11 and I'd like to apply for my teacher for this, or I'd like to apply my teacher for this award, would it be possible to do that?
I'm going to bat that across, I think, to Kate, because she'll have all the up-to-date T's and C's there.
So thank you very much. So the answer to that is, if you are a student in year 11, and we do sometimes get head girl and head boys entering, but strictly speaking, if you are a student, you can't actually enter. But we do have instances in the past where perhaps a senior student has liaised with the teacher and the teacher has put their name to it, and you've written the bones of the entry, and that's really, really lovely. But there's going to be some things that you don't know about your teacher that your head would like us to know to write a really substantial and successful entry. So we would say definitely write the bones of your entry and then go and work with the teacher, get them to put their name on it. They can explain in the additional information box that this has come from a student. That's really lovely, and that's how you get by that one.
Okay, something similar. If a parent, Kate, has to ask me to nominate someone, is the process different?
It is. So parents, unfortunately, can't enter, bar one category, which I'll come to shortly, can't enter a teacher directly. So there is, what you would do in that instance is you would go to the Thank You Teacher website and you would write your thank you message, and you would put in your thank you message that you would love this to go forward into the Teaching Awards. We will all of, like the entries, they all get read, they're all moderated. We will spot that against a flag. We then email the head of the school saying, this parent wants this teacher to go forward. Are you happy to take that entry forward? And we would then ask them to do the entry. So again, you could liaise with your head teacher, somebody on the SLT saying you want to do that. You're happy to write, you know, the beginning of the entry for them to continue. The only time that differs is you'll notice this year we have a category called the Unsung Hero Award, and that's for any member of the school team whatsoever. And that you can enter directly. So you will write, again, that goes via the Thank You Teacher page. So from the Teaching Award, you will click on I'm a Parent. That will take you to a form where you write your entry for the Unsung Hero, and then we send that to the school and we ask the school to build on that as well.
Okay, I have to do one from over this neck of the woods. So we're a school in Northern Ireland. Do we pay for the flights to London if selected? I'm a positive thinker here.
I'm afraid that yes, you do. We have so many entries and are a tiny charity, and we run on a bit of a shoestring. So unfortunately, yeah, that is at your own cost. The awards are free to enter, they're free to attend, get 3-course dinner. If you're a silver winner, you get put up in a hotel for the weekend. So there's lots of lovely things that you do get free. Obviously your trophy, your certificates, everything. But yeah, unfortunately, we're not in a position to pay travel expenses.
Okay. I work for an online school based in the UK. Am I able to submit an entry?
This I'm going to come back to later on, if that's okay, because I've had a few queries like this, and I think it's an internal discussion that we need to have. So I'm going to bail out of that one, but I will have that offline, and I will definitely answer that another time, if that's okay.
Can I nominate a teacher from another school?
So I've had a situation like this in a minute. So you can nominate a teacher at another school, but when the judging visit takes place, the school that that teacher is working at needs to be backed by the SLT of the school that they're currently in. And also the content of the entry needs to be current. So you can talk about what they've done. And we've had a situation where a teacher has been in their old school and they've just recently joined a new school, but they're 2 schools within the same trust. So actually in that situation, both schools are collaborating and they're writing 50% of the entry of what went on in their old school and 50% of what went on in their new school. But if it's just that you've left the school and you want to nominate an ex-colleague, that isn't ideal, no. You'd want the current school to be on board with it.
I work for a national SEND and SEMH tutoring provider. We have qualified teachers working one-to-one with vulnerable young people across the country, but we're not a registered school. Would we be able to enter teachers and internal education staff?
Another one that I'd like to come back to offline, if that's okay.
And just to clarify, I need permission from the SLT to nominate the head, and the head will only find out if he has been successful.
So you don't need permission, but we do advise that you obtain permission. Obviously, if you want to enter your head, you can't ask your head for permission, but we would advise discussing it with your deputy or your chair of governors even.
Okay, and last question online, can a governor make an entry?
Absolutely, yes. Lots of our head teachers' entries come from governors, in actual fact. Yes, definitely, as can external stakeholders such as social workers. Of course, typically I now can't think of any other external stakeholders off the top of my head, but yes, external stakeholders working closely with the school can as well.
Okay, we have 4 minutes left, and I'm going to come back to each of the judges and each of the nominators and nominees that have been on the call, and I'm going to ask you for one last little nugget, one special ingredient that would help somebody on the call before they finish. Sarah, we're going to start with you.
Well, that's putting me on the spot, isn't it? I think just go into this with a positive attitude, and just remember that this makes such a difference to people if they know that they have been nominated, even if it doesn't go any further. It's somebody has thought about them and has valued their role that they do in school.
I'm glad I put you on the spot. That was a very wise piece of advice. Nicola?
Mine would be that I can guarantee you'll enjoy the process yourself as a nominator, going through it for somebody else. So go for it, and you'll get a lot of pleasure out of being the nominator.
Thank you very much, Nicola.
Well, I would say this isn't about achieving this to be a gold winner. So I was a silver winner, and the opportunities it opened for me are massive. And I was asked back a couple of years later, even as a silver winner, to be a judge too. So this isn't just about only gold winners move forward in the future from it. There's loads of opportunities for silver winners too.
That's lovely input. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jodie.
I think one thing I would say is you may see, if you've watched the BBC footage, because of course they do a fantastic job of sharing and showcasing, you may get the impression that we only want to see all singing, all dancing teachers who get dressed up and do everything else. We absolutely don't. Some of my most special moments I've sat in a classroom and watched someone have been the quiet, just getting it done, making a huge impact and quiet. We are not looking for a teacher that looks, their teaching and pedagogy has to be a certain way. We're not looking for a certain delivery style. We find absolute gems everywhere and in every style.
Do you know that's very wise advice? I was just thinking that myself, and from year to year, the profile of the type of winner changes vastly. So there's no one size, I think, that fits all based on our experiences. Sam, I'm going to come to you.
I'd say before obviously getting involved in the awards, I had no kind of ambition or real knowledge of teaching awards. And I think if you are thinking about nominating someone, I can only really kind of say what I said at the start. It literally has been my absolute career highlight. Like the 6 months of that process has been the best time I've ever had in education, and I think it was the best for the staff and it was best for the kids. And that, so if you are thinking of doing it, I'd say go for it. If you think someone deserves that opportunity to be recognised, because they will value it. And like I've said, I'll remember it till the day I go out, I think. So it's just the most wonderful thing to be part of. So if you are considering nominating someone, just definitely do it, because I think they'll appreciate it forever. I know I do.
Jackie, you are our most recent gold winner, and I'm going to leave the last words to you.
Money can't buy this experience. It's been amazing, and it's brought joy to a lot of people. Go for it.
Thank you so much to everyone that has undertaken this evening. We genuinely appreciate you being here. Any additional questions, please contact the Teaching Awards website, and I'd encourage you to look at the website and start the process of submitting an entry. Thanks again for joining us this evening. Goodbye, and also a massive thank you to the team at the Teaching Awards for organising this. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.